following is a Worldwide Church of God presentation.
Well, greetings, brethren. Brethren in Australia. We just came, I visited day before yesterday, I guess I should say, the SEP summer camp. Now, I just want to say a word about these summer camps and about our YOU and YES program. Perhaps it is the most important program in getting the gospel to the world that we have. I don't think our brethren have ever realized just how important it is. And brethren, this church is trying to turn the hearts of the children to the parents and the parents to the children. And I tell you, it's taking great effort, and that's the value of these camps, these summer camps. That's the value of this YOU and YES. And to get the parents interested in working with their children and the children in working with their parents. That is not going on in any other church, and it never has been going on. It is today. We're commissioned to get the gospel, and the gospel is the good news of the coming kingdom of God. It's not a gospel about Jesus Christ, it's the gospel of Jesus Christ, and that's the gospel he proclaimed, and the gospel he proclaimed is the good news of the coming kingdom of God. Now, when we proclaim that to the world, most of them are listening with dumb ears. They can't understand a word. We're to get the message out to them as a witness, not to convert them, but for a witness. And it is a witness to all nations all over this world. But of all of the people that need the witnessing, those young people are first. God is not trying to save this world. But these young people do, because they are the children of parents in the church, they do have access to God. And in just 10 short years, most of those young people are going to be getting married and raising children of their own. And there is the most important field for us to reach with the gospel that there is. And I find that many of our brethren don't realize at all the importance of the work of the church in the YOU, the YES, and what we're doing with these young people. I would like to wake you up and have you understand and realize how important it is that we get to the youth. And they're the ones that are the coming leaders in God's world tomorrow when Jesus Christ comes to rule over all nations. And even if they're not converted yet, they will have much of the training and they will be leaders. And to be indifferent against a camp like that would be one of the worst sins you could commit, brethren. So I hope that none of you will be.
In the closing verses of the Old Testament, God spoke through the prophet Malachi to our time. He spoke across the ages to a generation living near the end of 6,000 years of history. 6,000 years in which human beings have rejected God's ways and have reaped the bitter fruit of their own way. The society they have built is based on a foundation of greed and selfishness. It is ruled by Satan, once an angel of light, but now the adversary of God. It has become his world, and it is doomed to destruction. To this end-time generation, God would send a messenger whose commission, like Elijah of ancient Israel, is to restore the truth in the midst of moral and religious confusion. But this generation is not the last to live in the end-time world. Children have been born to them. Children whose destiny could be to live on into the world tomorrow, to become the foundation of the new society that will fill all the earth. Against these children, Satan has waged a relentless and insidious war to destroy their potential and rob them of their destiny. The end-time world has become a dangerous place for children. One-third of all people on earth today are children under the age of 15. Most live in the poorer countries, condemned to a life of misery and squalor. 1 out of 5 of these children will die before they reach their first birthday. Those that survive may never get enough to eat, may never have clean, safe living conditions, will not receive even the minimum education or treatment for the diseases that will leave millions of them physically and mentally maimed for life. In this world that has made such awesome progress, millions of children and teenagers still are forced to live in inhuman conditions, without opportunity and without hope. And while the world spends $2 billion every week on war, every 2 seconds, a child dies of hunger. In the developed world, physical living conditions are better. Improved sanitation and medical facilities have greatly increased the children's chances of growing up. But the children of the richer world must face other serious problems, for Satan has flooded their world also with cruel deception and lies. In the midst of affluence, these children face moral and spiritual poverty, as Satan uses every evil device to undermine marriage, education, to pervert culture, and discredit what remains of the true values. Children become ever more frustrated and confused. They become alcoholics or hopeless drug addicts. They're drawn to bizarre and perverted entertainment, and many are driven to suicide. In despair and frustration, children and parents have begun to lose contact and turn away from each other. The family, the basic building block of civilization, has begun to crumble. And so, as the human race stands on the threshold of the world tomorrow, God, through the prophet Malachi, gave one more commission to his end-time servant. And he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. That is the challenge facing the families of God's church today. The Bible shows that the children of the people God has called also have a unique opportunity.
Well, I've been waving to you ever since I arrived. Now I'll say hello and greetings. young pioneers, because that's what you are. Well, I want you to understand, really understand, who you are. I suppose if I'd ask you, you'd say, well, that's a crazy question. We know who we are. Well, I'm not so sure you do. I'm not so sure you do. But there's one scripture in the Bible that especially concerns you young people, and that's in the New Testament in 1 Corinthians 7 and verse 14. And that shows that your parents, supposing you're in a divided home, maybe your mother left the church and your father's in, or maybe your father left the church and your mother stayed in. If even one of them is in the church, you, as their children, are what the Bible calls sanctified because of the one who is in the church. Now, that doesn't mean God has called you. That does not mean that you're sanctimonious, that you're goody-good, or anything of the kind. But it means you do have access to God, and Jesus said that no man can come to him except God calls him. The average person can't come to Jesus Christ. But if you're the child of one parent that is in the church, you can come to Christ. Now, a lot of you aren't quite old enough yet. But when you come to the place where you see this seriously enough and you know that you're tired of the way the world is living and the way you've been living and you want to live God's way, you can come to Christ. The door is open. You have access. Now, that doesn't mean you're any better than other kids, but it means you've got that chance now and they'll have to have it later. They're going to get it just the same as you. Doesn't mean God's favoring you any more than them. But you can have it now. And that's one way that you are different. I said in the beginning, I want to tell you who you are. And I think a lot of you didn't know what I just told you. You are young people that have access to God in a way that other kids do not have yet.
To help families meet the challenge and to help bridge the gap that has opened up between parents and children, the church is developing a comprehensive youth educational program. This program, directed by Pastor General Herbert W. Armstrong, is designed to support the parents in teaching their children and to provide positive educational and recreational opportunities for the youth of the church. Youth 84, soon to be in its 5th year of publication, is written to help teenagers deal with the problems and pressures unique to their generation. Its lively, colorful pages show its readers how to live carefully in this world while preparing for the future that God has waiting for them. Through the youth educational services, the church has developed a multi-level correspondence course for children between the ages of 5 and 13. The YES course gives parents a helpful tool to teach their children the basic principles of God's plans so that they can start out their lives on the right foundation. The individual lessons of the YES course are written by senior ministers and experienced teachers. Mr. Armstrong reopened Imperial Schools in 1980 as a co-educational, non-profit, private elementary and secondary school. Like Ambassador College, it was founded to recapture the true values in education. It is a pioneer in education today and a forerunner of the schools of the world tomorrow. YOU, Youth Opportunities United, is the Worldwide Church of God's international program for teenagers. Through many varied activities, YOU gives older children educational, social, and recreational opportunities within the framework of the church. Every summer, hundreds of teenagers have the opportunity to attend one of the summer educational programs that are held in many locations around the world. Young people from all backgrounds come together for 3 weeks of challenging activities and fun. But it is fun with a purpose. The church's main campsite is located on the shores of Pelican Lake near Orr, Minnesota. In the 20 years of this camp's existence, much valuable experience has been gained in training, teaching, and encouraging teenagers. For many, the 3 weeks of summer camp has been a turning point in their lives. Mr. Armstrong knows how responsive a teenager can be to encouragement. In his autobiography, he remembers how when he was 16 years old, he had a summer job. His employer praised his work and expressed confidence in him. For the first time, the young Herbert Armstrong was fired with the ambition to make something of himself and become a success. It was a turning point in Mr. Armstrong's life. The summer education program can be the turning point for other young people. Perhaps the right word of encouragement will help a teenager think seriously about the opportunities ahead. Mr. Armstrong is a frequent visitor to the campsite at Orr. In a moment of relaxation before meeting the campers, he reviews the purpose and goals of the summer education program.
I think we should teach them a little differently. That not just your goal should be to get into the kingdom of God.
Right.
But your goal should be to learn how to, because in the kingdom of God, they're going to have to teach others and be a leader, lead others, guide others, in other words, rule over others, plain language.
Mm-hmm.
But rule means leadership, setting the example.
Well, I tell the counselors and the staff that our #1 goal here is to get young people talking to their mom and dad and talking to the minister and working on their problems themselves. If we can get them talking and communicating and mom and dad will listen, then that's very important.
Well, in other words, they learn to start a different kind of life, and the question is, do they continue on that kind of life, or they just make a start and go back? You say about 75% continue.
Right, I would say between 70 and 75% as of last year, and
if
hopefully it will be...
If just 1 or 2 continue, it's worthwhile.
Right.
The 75%, how many do you have here at each camp?
We have 336 each session.
Yeah.
So well over 1,000 just in Orr. And then close to 300...
Through the summer, over 1,000.
Yes, over the 3-month summer. And they're willing to work on it, but they do need help and guidance. They're still teenagers.
The summer camp is first and foremost a place of education. And Mr. Armstrong has long taught that education should be conducted in an atmosphere of quality. He makes a point of personally inspecting all new facilities. He also believes the summer education program should offer ample opportunities for both education and fun. The summer camp program allows teenagers to experience the thrill of ultra-modern sports. Others can enjoy more down-to-earth recreation.
If you want to hear all the kids yell, just do that one there.
This one?
Uh-huh.
Summer camp is fun, but behind the fun, there is a serious purpose. Discussing the camp program with ministers and senior staff members, Mr. Armstrong explains how the weeks spent at SEP should also be a learning experience.
I am impressed that many of the members of the church scattered all around the world probably must have the idea that these camps are just a place for kids to come and get into some sports and have an outing. Maybe they get into a lot of mischief and all that sort of thing. It's just a case of having fun. And I wish that all the members of the church could come to one of these camps and get their eyes opened. Yes, they come here and have fun. But the thing is, they get a new definition of fun. Some children have come to these camps that have been trying to get fun out of drugs, smoking marijuana, and then even worse things. They learn that that's no fun and it's only harming and damaging them. But they learn things here and skills that really are fun and that are enjoyable. Now, we're trying to teach children at these camps some of the better things of life that are worth more than just money. Doing, giving, helping. They learn character here. They learn discipline. This is, in 3 weeks, the transformation that is made in the lives of these children is unbelievable. The time to begin teaching is little children. And we adults have been overlooking that fact too long. This is the work of God Almighty. And the most important phase of it is the little children. And thank all of you people here on the staff for the work you're doing with these young people. You will never know how valuable the work you're doing really is and how much fruit it's bearing. But I can tell you, and someday you'll learn it. So thank you.
The fine facilities at the summer campsite encourage a high standard of play, and enthusiasm runs high in both players and spectators. While the campers receive expert instruction in improving their skills at their favorite sports, the greatest emphasis is placed on developing a right attitude. A sense of fair play, accepting your mistakes, helping the other players to do their best, are traits of character that far transcend the basketball court. Once learned, they can carry over into other aspects of life. An important lesson that instructors teach is the ability to work in harmony with others, to achieve success as a team.
You know, a lot of times in playing sports, especially today, the main emphasis is on who wins the game. I want to bring out a few things before we take the field here this morning that are things that we want to emphasize and will be emphasizing in your classes here at the SEP camp. One of them that we want you to keep in mind is very important, and that is teamwork. How well do you play together as a team and as a group? Or are you just a group of individuals playing just for yourselves? Everyone's position is important. Doesn't matter what it is. You might even be a substitute. Maybe you're not going into the game right away. But when you do go into the game, when you're called upon, your team is going to be looking to you to perform and to back them up in the best possible way. Another thing that's important, that is very vital in softball, is attentiveness. Are you concentrating? Are you attentive? Are you aware of what's going on during the game? Because the game can go by and change very, very rapidly and quickly. And if you're out in the outfield and you're watching some of the other people in the other areas, if you're not concentrating, if you're not listening, then you're going to find out that you'll make a mistake or you'll let the team down. And that's something to remember in your life also, as you go beyond SEP, being alert, being attentive, concentrating, and working on that. These are things that are not only important for you while you're here at SEP, but that you can take with you as a part of your character.
Ministers with many years of experience quickly build a rapport with the campers.
Okay, we're going to go out in the field in just a moment. Do we all feel like we can put some of these things into practice?
Yes, sir!
Okay, let's get our gloves and head out.
Good sportsmanship, fair play, seeing that everyone on both teams has the chance to do their best. Campers soon learn that when a game is played this way, everybody wins. Perhaps the most challenging opportunity offered by the program at Orr is the 3-day canoe trip through the beautiful country along the border of Minnesota and the Canadian province of Ontario, one of the last true wilderness areas of the United States. Proper orientation and careful preparation are essential if the adventure is to be a success.
I want to start out, first of all, by telling you that I hope you're going to have a lot of fun. I want you to really get out and enjoy that. How many of you come from a city, live near a city? Most of you? How many of you ever been on a canoe trip like this before? Just a very few. Okay, a short one. How many of you have been on one of these before up here at SEP? All right, so it's a new experience for most of you. I want to tell you a little bit about where we're going. It is a habitat for all kinds of wildlife. In the last trip, we saw 4 moose so at one time. We've seen bald eagle, badger, lynx, and of course the American brown bear. They are quite prevalent. Even this year we've had bear in the camp ransacking the food supplies, so you know, it is, like I say, very much a wilderness area. Now you'll find that if you take an approach to this trip of being negative, of being downhearted, of saying, oh, I want to be back at camp, oh, you find that 1 or 2 of you begin to grumble and you start listening to one another, you know you're going to find you slow down, you're going to find you hate the trip. When you start to do that, when you get tired, if instead you put your head down and you paddle harder, and if you start to complain, if you bite your tongue and close your mouth and say something cheerful, you're going to find that this is the greatest thing, you know, that happened to you. It may rain, you may get sunburned. It may be calm, it may be windy. That's part of the beauty of it. We have absolutely no control. This is the Boundary Waters canoe area right here. Like I say, it's about 150
Wilderness canoe trips have a permanent impact on the life of the camper, partially because they last for 3 days, partially because of the unique setting, where there's more water surface than land.
All right? You'll probably camp in there one night, and then the last day you'll come down over Devil's Cascade and down the Little Indian Sioux River, where at 3 o'clock in the afternoon we will pick you up, you know, suntanned, windburned, and beards. Macho. All right. So the first day, plan on it, you're going to hurt. Your muscles are just going to be sore. You'll get up next morning and, man, you really have to stretch out. The second day, after a couple hours, you begin to feel really good. And the third day, you could conquer the world. So we expect to see you come in here with paddles working and big smiles on your face and haven't had a great time. Remember, though, you guys are the ones who make it a good time or a miserable time. So regardless of what the weather or the wind conditions do to you, you guys pull together, make a team, and build some character, and you'll find that as a result of doing that, you're going to have the time of your lives. All right? All right. All right.
During this 3-day trip, they take into these craft all of their food, all of their clothing, all of their shelter. They begin 3 days that contain incredible opportunities for character development. Character development does not require huge decisions, but can be decisions over seemingly small issues, but made properly and reinforced, become part of our character. Campers are faced with dozens of opportunities per hour, and it's into this unique setting that we send 10 people on a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Interestingly enough, the trips that run into adversity are the ones where the teamwork and the unity comes together much quicker. When the same campers are 30 years old and have a wife and children, and some trial comes into their life that threatens to stop them cold, it may very well be a canoe trip that they look back upon and say, this experience is what helped give me the character and the help that I needed to get through this trial. At the end of 3 days, it is a moving sight to see a group of campers come across the lake with their paddles flashing in unison. These same campers are the future leaders of God's church and in the world tomorrow. And it is experiences like these that helps them learn to be faithful in little, which will go a long way in helping them later be faithful in much.
Welcome home, fellas!
Have you ever thought about how
An important addition to the summer education program is the Communication Center. In this small but well-equipped facility, campers are able to experience for themselves some of the aspects of radio, television, and newspaper production. Who knows, for some, this might be the beginning of a rewarding hobby or a lifetime career.
we use the team concept in communications as well. We will pick a dorm and break them into various groups. Each group will work in one aspect of communications. One might do a writing assignment. Another group might do a radio tape. Some would work with the television cameras, while the rest of the class would be working in photography. Most of the campers who come here have never had any experience with a 35mm camera. We take them through the whole process: how to use the camera, processing the film, and darkroom techniques. Then they get to take a piece of film and make a print of their very own. It's quite an experience for most of these campers. They go out and take their own photographs. They'll go out and do an assignment. They shoot it. They make the print. Then we mount it for them, and they have that to take back with them after camp.
That's really good. I'm impressed.
One of the goals we have in communications class is to produce a complete newspaper. Each dorm has their own page, so if it's dorm 1G, then it's a page headlined 1G, or if it's 2B, then it's the 2B page. They write the articles, they take the photographs, they write the headlines, all for their own camp newspaper. They really get excited about that.
While teenagers enjoy experiencing the new things, time is taken to teach the age-old principles, without which true success is not possible. An important part of summer education programs worldwide is the Bible education class.
We're going to take a trip into the world tomorrow. And Mark, would you start reading Isaiah chapter 2, verse 4?
And he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore.
Now let's stop here and look at this verse. It says, and shall rebuke many people. Have any of you ever been rebuked? Okay. And have you been rebuked recently? Yes. Okay. By who? Okay, your counselor. Didn't you know how Christ will rebuke the nations? Yes. You'll see how important it is for Christ to rebuke the nations. Okay? And then it says that they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. So how do you apply that to a modern, should I say, application? Yes, right here.
You're going to convert melt down all the weapons and everything and make it into farm equipment.
Okay, name me some weapons and name me some farm equipment, okay? Yes.
The MX missile.
The MX missile? Yes. In the back.
Things like tanks and the tractors or farm equipment like that.
Okay, yes. Over here.
You have like the intercontinental ballistic missiles and just all the different types of missiles that are used in nuclear warfare.
And they will be turned into what type of equipment? Now, name me some specific farm equipment. Yes, back there.
Tractors and trucks and stuff.
And stuff? All right. Name me some more stuff here. Yes.
Balers.
Balers, yes.
Harvesters.
Harvesters.
Combine.
Combines. So here we have a application of the world tomorrow where the weapons which man will make in this age will be used for farm equipment. Or should I say the metal will be used for farm equipment in the world tomorrow.
Some of the challenges that these teenagers will face in the future may seem impossible and out of reach now. Building the world tomorrow will be a job for experts. Becoming an expert at the sport of archery, as in any other field, requires careful attention to detail, quality equipment, constant practice, and above all, the application of the laws that lead to success. The campers at the summer education program discover in their first archery lesson that there is a lot to learn before they can shoot an arrow accurately.
Okay, keep up the good work. Okay, how you doing over here?
Well, not too good, Mr. Sexton. Not hitting the target.
Okay, well, go ahead and shoot this arrow and we'll see what you're doing.
Okay.
All right, what you want to do is raise your elbow up just a little bit, and you want to use your right eye. So open your right eye and close your left eye. Whenever you're ready, you can relax your fingers and let the arrow slide out. Good shot. Excellent.
Thank you, sir.
With encouragement and expert instruction, this camper begins to reach a level of achievement that he thought was impossible.
Okay, you want to make sure your right eye's open. Sit your left eye's closed and just let the string slide away from your fingers. Nice and easy. Great. You're doing much better.
He has learned that in archery, as with everything else in life, he can succeed if he follows the steps that lead to success. Adopt the proper stance. Notch the arrow in the bow. Draw the bow back. Anchor the arrow. Take careful aim. Release the arrow and follow through. He hit the bullseye, but even more important, he has gained some confidence. Maybe these campers will never use a bow and arrow again, but they have learned an important lesson. Goals that at first seem out of reach can be accomplished if you follow the laws of success.
And the fourth law of success is? Drive! Now what is...
At SEP in Big Sandy, Mr. Armstrong enjoys seeing the young campers being taught these same laws that have borne so much fruit in his own life.
All right, drive is the fourth law of success. What is the fifth law of success? Resourcefulness. And the sixth law of success is? Perseverance. And the seventh law of success is?
Contact with God.
Good. All right, we've discussed how to have that contact with God. What are some of the ways that you do have contact with God? Personal contact. All right, anyone? All right, Stephanie?
Prayer.
All right, prayer is one of those basic ways. Kathy?
Bible study.
Bible study?
Meditate.
Meditation? Yes.
Fasting.
All right, and fasting. Those are some of the ways that you can draw closer to being closer to God.
And so the campers at SEP learn that there are laws that will lead them to success in the things they want to do now and in meeting the even greater challenges of the future. Many of the campers at Big Sandy have attended camp at Orr in previous years. The facilities at Big Sandy give them the chance to have new experiences and to develop new skills as they respond to the direction and guidance of their instructors.
Big Sandy is unique. Since the campers have had previous experience, they are a little older and a little more responsible. They come to Big Sandy having better attitudes, having built a little better character, having more self-discipline, and better respect for God's laws and for man's laws. It is also unique in that not every young person in God's church can attend Ambassador College. However, the facilities are being put to good use during the summer months, in that hundreds of young people are getting a chance and an opportunity to see the campus and to be instructed by the college faculty. It gives them a chance to also see that Mr. Armstrong is not only concerned about their first camp experience, but that he is also concerned about their future as well.
Now, I've tried to tell you what's the purpose of the church. I've tried to tell you what's the purpose of human life and why God had people created. I've tried to tell you something about who and what God is. Now, I hope it made sense to you, and I hope you can take these things home with you. Now, just remember, you're no better than other kids, but you're learning things they haven't had a chance to learn yet. And you try to live these things when you get home. It means there's a bigger responsibility on you to live God's way. And others don't know how to live that way yet. But there's a big responsibility on you to do it, and you'll be so much happier if you do. And look how wonderful this earth can be if we live right. Look how beautiful things are on this campus. The beautiful trees and beautiful lawns and beautiful things. And if we just live beautifully, then everything is beautiful and lovely and we're all happy. That's what we're trying to teach you here. And we have these camps all over the world. We have one in Scotland. We have them in New Zealand. We have them in Australia and in South Africa. And I think these camps are a wonderful thing.
The summer education program for Britain is held on the banks of Loch Lomond in southwest Scotland. Campers from several nations enjoy a variety of exciting activities during the 3-week program.
When I first went to SEP 16 years ago, for me it was the fulfillment of a lifelong dream, because I was given the opportunity to do many things I never thought I would be able to do. Things which in Britain were just not available or were simply too expensive for the average person. Today, that is still the case. It's a real thrill to see teenagers involved in exciting activities they've never experienced before and would not experience apart from SEP. But perhaps the greatest satisfaction to me is to hear from parents after SEP describing the positive effect camp has had on their teenagers. Many are enthused and inspired and filled with a sense of accomplishment and simply can't wait to come back the following year. In fact, I remember one parent coming to me after church services, and he was really excited. And he said, well, my son now makes his bed, he's much tidier around the room, he's much easier to work with. I don't know what you've done to him up there, but it's really great.
One other very important goal that we're really wanting to emphasize here at SEP is in relationship to your families. Sure, have fun here with the activities. We're learning hopefully a lot more about interpersonal relationships, but very importantly, the relationship that you have with your parents. And we're wanting you to forge much stronger relationships with your parents. Now, one of the main characteristics, unfortunately, of this age in which we live is that families have been split apart. The divorce rate gets seemingly ever higher, and increasingly, children do not know their parents, and parents don't know their children. So a very important part of the church's commission that we wanting to emphasize here at SEP is, as Malachi says, turning the hearts of the fathers to the children and the hearts of the children to the fathers. In other words, bringing the families back together. Now, that's an important part of character. It's going to make you a better person. It's going to help you face life better.
In the leatherwork class, the campers learn a practical skill. Under expert guidance, this camper has made himself a useful memento of summer camp. Sooner or later, most campers want a flight on the parasail.
What do we got here?
This is William.
Hello, William. I'm Mr. Carter. Let me hold that for you and give you a handshake there. You ever done this before?
Nope.
Okay, we're all set up. Now listen, William, we're going to take you out this way, straight out, and we're going to whip you all around the lake right here, rather slowly. We won't hurt you. And you get right here now, this is the point when we come down, the landing takeoff.
Yeah.
So when we land now, when I pull the hand, the side we show you, that's the hand you pull. Okay, and what do you pull back? Once you reach back and grab that rope there. Okay, now if I pull the other hand,
Reach back and
pull that hand. There you go. Now, what happens when we do this?
do nothing.
Nothing. Just come straight down. When you land, what do you do?
Bend my knees.
Bend your knees. There you go to absorb the shock. You ever done this before? You said never.
No.
You gonna have a good time?
Yep.
Okay, we'll have to go there. Good job. Okay, you ready?
The instructors leave nothing to chance. But even so, it's hard to hide a feeling of anxiety in those moments just before your first flight.
Go.
Back to Earth after one of the most exciting few minutes of his young life. The moments of apprehension were worth it. Now he has the quiet confidence that comes from facing a challenge and succeeding.
Congratulations.
Demonstrating his interest in all the youth of the church, Mr. Armstrong traveled to the southern hemisphere to visit the campsites in both New Zealand and Australia. He was met in Wellington, New Zealand's capital city, by a group of college students and young church members who were touring New Zealand by bicycle.
The summer camp in New Zealand is a very beautiful facility on an isolated island which is accessible only by boat. And from there it is another 15 or 20 minutes by vehicle to the actual campsite. This part of New Zealand is still unspoiled. It's almost like entering a new world. The campers are asked not to bring radios, which helps create a very serene and idyllic atmosphere. It's about as close to a millennial setting as I've ever experienced. The churches in New Zealand are quite small and far apart, but at the SEP, the YOU members from all over the country can get together and also meet many other young people from all over our South Pacific region.
In addition to the usual summer education activities, the magnificent location offers many unique experiences, such as learning to sail a luxury yacht as she cruises in the warm waters of the harbor. Across the Tasman Sea, the Australian SEP is in full swing. A permanent campsite is being developed at Mugara in southeast Queensland.
Although Australia is a large continent, most people live in the cities. The SEP camps give the YOU members a chance to meet with other young people from all over the country. Activities like riflery, horseback riding and water skiing give the campers a taste of the outdoors and a chance to work together in challenging situations. They might have to persevere while learning to ski behind the screen of a high-powered boat, or perhaps concentrate on keeping their balance as they do a headstand on the water. Maybe it's enjoying the tranquility and sense of achievement of running before the breeze while windsurfing. Some campers try their hand at golf, or learn a handicraft, while others go to the rugged cliffs near Lake Mugara to learn rock climbing. Rock climbing is an exciting sport once you've learned the proper techniques and pay careful attention to the rules. It teaches courage, coordination and attention to detail. Lessons that once learned pay rich dividends in less precarious aspects of life.
Mr. Armstrong flew to Lake Mugara by helicopter after visiting the Australian regional offices at Burleigh Heads.
Dear Mr. Armstrong, I've had the opportunity of attending the camps in Orr, Minnesota, Mugara, Australia, and also visiting the camp in Big Sandy, Texas. There is no possible way to thank all the people who have helped me to have some of the best times of my life, but I would like to thank you. I have heard you speak several times at Orr and also in Australia. I remember the excitement that the others had felt, especially in Australia where your visits are not as frequent. You talked to us as a grandfather would, warning and encouraging us. Sir, I want to thank you again for your continual concern and support of God's youth, because it is helping us to come closer to our ultimate potential.
What is the 8th commandment? Okay, you shall not steal. Let's turn to Ephesians 4, verse 28. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 28. While we're turning there, let me ask you, when does a thief cease to be a thief? Okay, it's not just a matter of when he stops stealing. That's just a thief between jobs, more or less. A thief ceases to be a thief when he ceases thieving and then repents. It's not just a case of stopping the act. It's turning around and replacing it with something good. Driving out the evil with something that is good. So from Ephesians 4:28 we find here that a thief ceases to be a thief when he becomes generous, when he begins to give, to practice the way of give rather than taking from other people. What are the different ways that we can steal? Yeah.
Just by at work, you not working hard enough or
Good.
from the lunch break or something like that.
Okay, not putting in an honest day's work is stealing from the boss, isn't it? Okay, borrowing, quote unquote, as opposed to literal borrowing where the person doesn't know you're taking it. That really is stealing because you haven't been authorized to have possession of their goods. Taking a bribe. That's an example of stealing. Okay, you can be spending all of your time pursuing your own hobbies and interests, or even at the office doing work and neglecting your family, and you're taking away from the family relationship. You're stealing fatherhood from your children. You're stealing the relationship that the wife needs with her husband. They're stealing from God, stealing God's tithe. Okay, people rob themselves and they rob God when they steal God's tithe. Okay, giving somebody a bad name, taking away their good reputation. That's also theft, isn't it? So there are many ways that we can break this commandment, and if we learn to look at the expanded form as Jesus Christ magnified the law and made it much more far-reaching than just the physical act of taking something that's not yours, you understand these laws in their full spiritual intent, and it becomes a lot easier to be able to be like God, because God's law is what God is. And as we keep God's law and take that law into our minds and begin to practice what God teaches us to do, the 7 laws of success, the 10 commandments, we become like God. And that is the purpose of human life, so that we can become like God.
After carefully inspecting the new campsite, Mr. Armstrong talks to the campers and staff.
There's one thing terribly wrong with this camp. You know what it is? I've got one big criticism. It only lasts 3 weeks. It ought to last forever, if possible. Now, you're going to have problems when you get home. You'll find other kids your age aren't living like you learned to live here. Now, you've been tested on certain things here. Tightrope walking and some of the things you've done, and mountain climbing. Some things have tried your nerve, see if you've got the nerve to do it. And you'll be tried to see if you've got the nerve to stand up for what you learned here when you get home. You see about it, and just pray to God and ask Him to help you, and He will. Believe me, He will if you pray and ask Him. So remember, you've found a better way of living. Don't ever lose it. Don't ever forget it. Just keep it, and keep it forever. So all of you carry on. I feel greatly rewarded for I've come a long ways to come here and see you in this camp. It's a long ways from Pasadena, California here. It's been worth it. I'm glad I came, glad I saw you. I'm glad you had the fun you've had here. And I hope that many of you will come back next year. And just remember that what you've learned here, don't ever let it get away from you. So I'll just say goodbye with that.
If the negative influences of this world are to be combated, children must be given encouragement and the opportunities to develop their talents and potential. Through the Ambassador Foundation, Mr. Armstrong has made constructive contributions to the education of young people in many parts of the world. While visiting a school for hill tribe children in northern Thailand, on behalf of Mr. Armstrong, Dr. Herman Hay presented a gift and offered some words of encouragement. At Bunyat Special Education Center outside Amman, Jordan, several Ambassador College students have taken a year off from their studies to become teachers. After visiting the center, Mr. Armstrong saw that Ambassador College could help by providing technical aid to develop the facilities. Also, he decided to send several students who could help in the training of both the teachers and the handicapped children. In Jerusalem, Arab and Jew live together in an atmosphere of tension and suspicion. The International Cultural Center for Youth, ICCY, was founded to help young Jewish and Arab children understand each other better. For this reason, Mr. Armstrong has been an enthusiastic supporter of the ICCY for many years. In Jerusalem, a special concert is performed for him by Arab and Jewish children. themselves, the activities of the ICCY cannot solve the problems of this tortured part of the world. But by building friendship and understanding between the children, they are taking a big step in the right direction.
I've lived a long time now. I'll be 92 this month, before this month is out. And I see the handwriting on the wall, and I see the way things are going in the world. And we haven't got much time. And the big job, once we've gone through this crisis and Jesus Christ comes as King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and we start the world tomorrow, a new world, and this world is dead and gone. There are many people who are going to survive all of the troubles of the Great Tribulation, and they will have children. And I can see that it's going to take not less than 3 whole generations before we can have world peace. Even after Christ comes, many of you seem to think that we'll have world peace just hocus pocus as soon as Christ comes. It isn't going to be that easy. Something has to cause it. People have to change the way they live before we have world peace, because it's the way people live that's causing all of the trouble today.
And so we must teach our children a different way of life. In the French province of Lorraine, near the little town of Morange, 80 children and teenagers from several European countries enjoy a summer education program, French style. The beautiful countryside of Lorraine is a sobering reminder of the need to prepare for a different world. For in these green fields on the border of France and Germany, Europe's great armies have clashed across the centuries. The Kaiser drilled and paraded his troops here. Then he led them into war, and a generation of young men were slaughtered. After the First World War, the territory was given to France. The French built a formidable barrier, the Maginot Line, to protect their frontiers forever against the enemy. But to no avail. Adolf Hitler promised his people 1,000 years of national greatness as he taught the children the arts of war and sent them to fight his battles. The Nazi legions devastated Europe for 4.5 terrible years before they were pushed back and destroyed by the combined armies of the wartime Allies. Only a few miles from the campsite at Morange is the war cemetery of Saint-Avold. Thousands of American soldiers are buried here. Most were young men, little more than teenagers, victims of a world that did not know the way of peace. It is sobering for the young YOU members to visit this cemetery. No greater contrast could be drawn between the ways of a world held captive by Satan and the way of life that comes from God. Satan's world has brought 6,000 years of misery and death. God offers life, abundant life in the world tomorrow, where no one will live in fear, and no nation will ever have to send its young men off to war again. One great conflict still lies ahead for the human race. a war in which terrible weapons will be used. So great will be this war, so devastating the power that will be unleashed, that unless God intervenes, no flesh would be saved alive. But God will intervene and bring the dazed survivors into the world tomorrow to begin a new way of life. What kind of a world will they inherit? Once lush farmlands will have become barren wastelands. Forests will be destroyed. Transportation links will be in ruins, and communication networks shattered. Lakes and rivers will be polluted. Food will be in short supply, and the air may be polluted from the dust and debris of nuclear war. There will be millions of widows and orphans in need of help, wounded in need of healing. This world's great cities will lie in ruins and their industries destroyed. The rubble must be cleared and the waste places rebuilt into sparkling, clean cities that are exciting to visit and a pleasure to live in. And so a new society will fill the earth. It will at last be a world that is safe for children. We are on the threshold of a new world when the knowledge of God's way of peace will cover the earth as the seas cover the ocean beds. The men, women, and children that God has chosen must learn that way. Parents and children that work together now will be the ones who are ready to teach in the world tomorrow. He shall turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the children to their fathers. That is the challenge facing God's people today. The first families to inherit eternity.